It's a beautiful day in Huntington Beach, though these men don't seem to be having too much fun in the sun. That's because they are part of a training program called Rescue Athlete, which helps those hoping to succeed in the special forces of the United States military.
These guys are going into special operations as far as the rescue community, typically for Air Force Pararescue.
Justin Barrett, a Garden Grove native, is a unit performance trainer and says that the Rescue Athlete experience will allow these men to properly deal with the life or death situations pararescue men face while on missions.
We're introducing them into stressful situations, but through their mindset, they could overcome any obstacle that's thrown at them safely.
Trainers test these Air Force hopefuls by creating an intense environment.
In the water, go. Hot, stop, go, go.
And as you can see from the strain on their faces, this is anything but easy.
2, 3, 9. Recover.
The 3-day-long program cost $325, and Rescue Athlete trainee David Lucas says his money was well spent.
This program, Rescue Athlete, offers an amazing program that really gives you that feel and exactly what you're going to expect when you get into this line of work.
Rescue Athlete trainee Brian Fox agrees.
The first event was definitely an eye-opener. It was very tough, but I think this will definitely help me with my mental toughness and getting through each evolution.
The Rescue Athlete program begins with the psychological evaluation of each participant. The evaluation allows for an in-depth assessment of each individual's strengths and weaknesses. The trainers then use that information to provide each rescue athlete with a customized training experience to better push each person to their physical best, which Rescue Athlete says is only possible by improving on one's mental toughness.
Really, it's about the education and the experience based around whole performance. So we'd like to talk to them about how it's 90% mental and 10% physical.
The Rescue Athlete program then ends with a mental assessment where each individual is left with a better understanding of which attributes to embrace and which ones to improve on.
And they got to understand that their physical characteristics will only take them so far, and that it'll expose their mental weaknesses.
Keep it going.
From dragging dummies across the beach to running back and forth into ice-cold ocean waters. The program also trains its rescue athletes with extensive pool workouts, which include underwater swimming, and survival tactics, which also double as teamwork building exercises. Trainers say the program isn't only for those looking to join the military.
It could be from anyone that's like my wife just had a baby, or it could be from anyone that just wants to improve their overall physical shape by enhancing their mental capabilities.
It's not one size fits all. Each individual is coming to us, in some cases from all over the United States.
If we haven't scared you away yet, you can find Rescue Athlete online at www.rescueathlete.com.
What's going on, everyone in YouTube land? I've got Jason Broline, Air Force Pararescueman, on the phone here. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to come join us here. Let us ask you a few questions, Jason. Let's first start off with your credentials. What brought you to the Air Force, and what brought you to the pararescue career field?
Thanks again for having me, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this to help others out there and answer some of their questions. I was an active duty PJ for 10 years, 3.5 which were spent as an indoc instructor. Our initial course of entry, which is 2-week development course, and it goes into 9 weeks of indoctrination, which is where 90% of our attrition comes right up front. Again, 3.5 years were spent there. The last, I think it's coming up on 8 months, I'm now stationed at Patrick Air Force Base as a reservist. And as far as experience, 3 deployments, 1 to Iraq, 2005, 2 to Afghanistan, 2006, 2008. And after that, I was moved over to Indoc, where we don't deploy.
So what are your thoughts on the episodes that you've seen so far in the Combat Rescue series? And have you had any experience working with any of the individuals that are on the show?
Yes, actually, I'd say about half of those guys were my students at Indoc, Eric Hansen, a few of the other guys. So I recognize quite a few of those names. Brett, who was in episode 1, he was my team member. So it was his first deployment and my last deployment in 2008. So I actually know definitely a few of the guys.
So you probably taught him a few of the things he knows.
It's a tough situation. They've done a great job. It's hard to be especially the young guys, it's hard to be on your first deployment and also have a camera recording what you're doing. You know, when they recorded that, they did an awesome job dealing with those types of dynamics, which is not easy.
Now, with the cameras following you, that added pressure on that last episode, episode 5, they did a crike. Have you had to do any crikes in your time and deployments?
Not in the back of the helo. Do what you got to do. And certainly there's steps leading up to that point, and that situation led them down the path to do what they appropriately did. Now, our team actually had to do a tube, a few types of interventions to help the patients breathe. I don't really want to go into specifics of that. And all my deployments, outstanding team members. My last deployment, one of my team members had to, what we call, tube a baby. So that's certainly a very difficult situation, even in the hospital. In this case, it was pitch black on NVGs and secure the airway in a very dynamic situation. So that was very impressive to see. In that situation, I was the team leader running the entire situation. And we also have, you'll see in the show, team members. Their focus is medicine. So I have the overall team leader and combat rescue officer that's orchestrating the situation. Then you'll have the team members, which are typically the younger guys right out of the pipeline. They're dedicated, in this case, leading the medicine. Now, the team leader still gets involved with the medicine when needed. However, it's the team members' role.
You're kind of the supervisor in the situation, making sure that everything's happening that needs to happen in a timely fashion, I would assume.
Yes, making sure that the process is moving as smooth as it can be expected and efficient, as opposed to, in this case, you know, you can get tunnel vision, heads down in the medicine. So that's why we have those individuals. Now, everybody's a paramedic. All the PJs are paramedics. However, in this case, you have the team leader role, who's orchestrating the situation, the team member that's focused on the medicine.
Let's get and jump into the questions. We've got Strongwin93 is asking, what are some of the major differences between you, an enlisted PJ, and a combat rescue officer?
Okay. Started to allude to that a little bit. I want to start off this question by saying that everybody in the military has a critical function, big picture-wise, and making sure that everybody is doing their specific job exceptionally well and all fitting into the big picture. Now, that's, in this case, a microcosm of that, where PJ is focused on one aspect in the big picture of the personnel and equipment recovery. The combat rescue officer is overseeing the entire process of inception, helping to facilitate the process, and then, depending on the situation, for example, personnel recovery. So they're going to be working with the SEER folks, which is also part of the Guardian Angel weapon system. So, for example, we're going to pick up isolated personnel. The combat rescue officer is going to oversee the entire process. So the PJs are going to focus on the terminal area, the execution. Now, that doesn't mean that combat rescue officers don't go on those types of missions. They, in a lot of cases, certainly do. However, they just have a different focus. So the PJ's focus is the terminal area tactics, the execution on scene, getting to and from, communication involved, and coordinating with the combat rescue officer. And then the combat rescue officer then coordinates on a much larger scale, depending on what resources are being utilized. Once the personnel is returned to a safe environment, then the combat rescue, in conjunction with the SEER specialist, is then going to go through their process, repatriation. We're not going to get into details, but so that individual that comes back from isolation needs to go through a process to be reintroduced, one, to society, as well as gather critical information about what happened. So once the survivor is returned, our job ends, and that's where the survival specialist and the combat rescue officer's roles continue. Both outstanding jobs, as well as on all the jobs in the military. However, that just happens to be our focus and some of the delineation there. So PJs, in addition to the terminal area tactics, are also paramedics. Combat rescue officer does not require that skill set. They still get NT basic training to help understand the process that PJs go through. The medicine just is not their focus. Again, both great jobs, just have different focuses.
Well, thanks for that very, very good answer. Now moving on to the next one, we've got the Dog for Life asking, how much downtime do the PJs have and how do they prepare to deploy? Like, what special training do they go through before they deploy? And I think maybe that downtime question is being asked because he sees you guys waiting around for maybe those mission drops where they're playing around with the helicopter. But go ahead.
As far as downtime, I hear it quite a bit. Having been an instructor in some of the things we do with rescue athlete outside the military. I get that question quite a bit. And they're all very, very good questions, and I just want to make sure this one gets answered maybe a little broader, which might help as well. So as far as downtime, stateside, certainly there is some when we're home. We're able to spend a little bit of time with the family. What I liked about being on team, I was stationed at Moody Air Force Base, the 38th Rescue Squadron. Very busy, like many jobs, in this case the Air Force and military, very busy, especially these days with not as many personnel. The military forces are drawing down, so there's less personnel to do your job. In our case, we have a hard time finding qualified individuals, so we're still trying to maintain our force. But other areas, we're drawing down. So there's more pressure being put on each individual in the military. So when we are home, though, our leadership typically does an outstanding job. But when we are home, we get to, hey, if you're not doing anything, go spend some time with the family. Because we are TDY, which means we go out, we leave our duty station, and we go travel to train quite a bit of the year. My first year as a PJ, I was gone 250, 260 days, and there's others out there that are probably gone a little bit more than that. That's happening in my situation, and that was pretty standard each year when I was at Moody Air Force Base. And there's a whole spin-up just to deploy. We have a good idea where we're going and when we're going, in some cases a year out, so we're able to prepare for that specific type of deployment. Types of evolutions of training lend themselves towards that deployment. Now, once you're deployed, it just depends. How much downtime you have all really depends on what time of year, what type of operations are happening. There's a lot of variables, and my 3 deployments, 2 to Afghanistan, 1 to Iraq, no 2 deployments were like just very different. And unfortunately, in our case, when we're busy, tragically bad things are happening. Now, I caveat that with we are the best on the planet at what we do. So when we do execute and are expected to execute, we make it happen. We don't brag about what we do. You rarely even hear anything about this, about what we do for that reason. Silent professionals, we execute, we make it happen. We dominate the situations, and we come home, debrief, and pretty much all you hear about it. In this case, the TV show is downrange with the guys. Again, very dynamic situation. There's a lot they can't show. There's a lot they can't talk about. A lot of those situations are manufactured. For example, sitting down with the milkshakes at the picnic table, that really doesn't happen. Guaranteed that was manufactured. I haven't talked to those guys, but no doubt situations like that, they're just trying to draw more information out of them because we rarely even talk.
You don't like milkshakes?
Protein shakes, maybe a milkshake with some added protein, but other than that, not really.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. This one's from Mark T33, and he's asking, what is the relationship with the PJs to the other branches? And I think this one is probably coming out of the episode where the SF medic who runs over that, I don't know if it was a mine or IED, and blew off his leg. I think was it Seth, I believe, was talking about how it's one of their guys.
Unfortunately, that type of situation happens all too often. There's lots of areas in Afghanistan. I've had to go into those situations before without protection, or you saw in one of those episodes, now they have the scanners. I'm not sure when we got those, but my 2 previous deployments to Afghanistan, granted it's been a few years since I've been an instructor, but unfortunately there's a lot of landmines, IEDs in that country, so tragically that happens all too often. Now, as far as relationship, again, you're seeing a linear perspective here in the show. That's just one application of the Guardian Angel weapon system in this case. You see the PJs and the combat rescue officer going out. Now, as far as our relationship with other branches, I can't really talk about that too much, but certainly there's examples where you have PJs that are deployed with sister services, their elite forces within their branch. So the relationship extends far deeper than just what you see on TV as far as us picking them up. Again, a lot of that stuff you can't put on TV, but the special operations community is a united and tight community across the board. So certainly, a lot of cases, awesome united front that all branches bring to the warfighting community. Again, can't go into too much detail on this. Again, all great questions, and another great question here. Unfortunately, I just can't talk too much about that.
Well, no problem there. I'm sure they'll understand.